What if I told you that in some parts of the world, being an American can make you a target? While the US is often seen as a global superpower, not everyone views it favorably. In fact, there are countries where anti-American sentiment runs so deep that it shapes politics, culture, and even daily life. But here's the kicker. The number one country on this list might completely shock you. Why do these nations feel this way? And what does it mean for Americans traveling or living abroad? Let's dive into the top 10 countries that harbor the strongest anti-American sentiments and uncover the reasons behind them. The United States is often seen as a land of opportunity, freedom, and innovation. But not everyone around the world shares this view. In some countries, anti-American sentiment is deeply rooted in history, politics, and cultural differences. From wars and interventions to cultural imperialism, the reasons vary, but the impact is real. In this video, we'll explore the top 10 countries where anti-American feelings are the strongest. We'll look at the historical events that fueled these sentiments, the current political climate, and what it means for Americans traveling or working in these regions. Whether it's due to military interventions, economic policies, or cultural clashes, these countries have complex relationships with the US. So, buckle up as we count down the top 10 countries that dislike Americans the most. And prepare to be surprised by number 1. Before we dive into the list, it's important to understand what fuels anti-American sentiment. For many countries, it's rooted in historical events like wars, coups, or interventions. The US has been involved in numerous conflicts, from Vietnam to Iraq, and these actions have left lasting scars. Economic policies also play a role. The US is often seen as a symbol of capitalism and globalization, which can lead to resentment in countries struggling with poverty or inequality. Cultural influence is another factor. American movies, music, and fast food are everywhere, and some see this as a threat to their own traditions. Finally, political ideologies can clash. Countries with authoritarian regimes or anti-Western governments often portray the US as an enemy to rally their citizens. Understanding these factors helps explain why anti-American sentiment exists and why it's so persistent in some parts of the world. Let's start with countries where anti-American sentiment is significant but not necessarily overwhelming. 10. Pakistan. Despite being a US ally in the war on terror, many Pakistanis blame America for drone strikes and civilian casualties. The perception of the US as a manipulative power has fueled widespread distrust. 9. Turkey. Once a close NATO ally, Turkey's relationship with the US has soured over issues like Syria, the Kurdish conflict, and the failed 2016 coup. Many Turks believe the US supports their enemies. 8. China. While not overtly hostile, China's state media often portrays the US as a declining power trying to contain China's rise. Trade wars and military tensions in the South China Sea have exacerbated this view. 7. Russia. The Cold War may be over, but tensions remain high. US sanctions, NATO expansion, and accusations of election interference have deepened anti-American feelings in Russia. 6. Venezuela. The US has long been critical of Venezuela's socialist government, and many Venezuelans see America as an imperialist power trying to control their country's oil reserves. Now, let's look at countries where anti-American sentiment is more intense. 5. Iran. The 1979 Iranian Revolution was a turning point in US-Iran relations. The US support for the Shah and subsequent sanctions have made America a symbol of oppression for many Iranians. 4. North Korea. North Korea's state propaganda portrays the US as its greatest enemy. The Korean War, nuclear tensions, and sanctions have cemented this view in the minds of North Koreans. 3. Afghanistan. Despite decades of US involvement, many Afghans blame America for the ongoing violence and instability in their country. The chaotic withdrawal in 2021 only deepened these feelings. 2. Iraq. The 2003 invasion and subsequent occupation left a deep scar on Iraq. Many Iraqis view the US as an occupying force that destabilized their country and fueled sectarian violence. And now, the country that tops the list of anti-American sentiment might surprise you. Serbia. Why Serbia? The answer lies in the 1999 NATO bombing campaign, led by the US, which targeted Serbia during the Kosovo War. Many Serbians view this as an unjust act of aggression that caused civilian casualties and lasting trauma. Even today, anti-American sentiment runs deep in Serbia. The U.S. recognition of Kosovo's independence has only added to the resentment. For many Serbians, America represents a force that undermined their national sovereignty. So, what does this mean for Americans traveling or living in these countries? While most people can separate governments from individuals, it's important to be aware of local sentiments. In some places, displaying American symbols or discussing politics can attract unwanted attention. However, it's also worth noting that attitudes can vary widely within countries. In many cases, personal interactions can overcome stereotypes, and Americans are often welcomed as individuals. Anti-American sentiment is a complex issue rooted in history, politics, and culture. While it's easy to generalize, it's important to understand the specific reasons behind these feelings. So, what do you think? Were you surprised by any of the countries on this list? Have you experienced anti-American sentiment while traveling? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into global issues. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.